Hello, beloved listeners. This is Adrienne, just letting you know that we are heading into our summer break. If you listen to us regularly, you know we take a summer break for a couple months, and then we will be back in the fall with more sibling interviews. We actually have some really exciting ones still coming up, and we thought we would just do half the season of these, but there's so many great siblings out there, and more of you keep coming out of the woodwork. So we're excited to bring you more, but first we're going to rest and shift and be in the summertime and get sun on our skin, and we hope you do the same. We love you so much. Be good to yourselves. The apocalypse is happening all the time. I love y'all.
I'm Autumn Brown, a queer science fiction writer, a theologian, a mother of dragons, and a healing justice facilitator for social movements living on Dakota and Anishinaabe land currently known as Minneapolis.
And I'm Adrienne Marie Brown, a writer, student of miracles and love and transformation, emergent strategist and pleasure activist living on Anishinaabe territory currently known as Detroit.
And this is How to Survive the End of the World,
our podcast about learning from apocalypse with grace, rigor, and curiosity. And we are deep into our sibling miniseries, and today we have a really special treat for y'all. We have Makani Demba and Robin D.G. Kelly. And these two are, I think, for both Autumn and I, people who have really shaped us and shaped our movement participation in a variety of ways. Makani founded the Praxis Project and has done her strategy work now through Higher Ground, Change Strategies, and actually just stepped up to co-hold Black Lives Matter through a massive leadership transition with Mufa Bandele. And I have had the honor of learning up close and personal with Makani over the past, decade as a co-facilitator, and gotten to be in the rooms that she shaped. And I just think the world of her brain. She's the strategist in holding change. So I'm just like, yep. And then Robin D.G. Kelly is a historian, American historian, author of some of the most popular texts that all of us be reading. Some of them, Freedom Dreams, Race Rebels, Yo Mama's Dysfunctional. I have also gotten a chance to be with Robin on panels talking about Grace Boggs. I've been in spaces where I got to see Robin show up in movement space as someone who is not holding an academic role as something that separates you, but something that helps you contribute and keep building the way that we think and shaping our critical skills, critical analytical skills and historical skills. So this is really exciting for us. You are two of the people that I didn't know were siblings for a long time. And then when I found out you were siblings, it was so thrilling to me. And I was like, that makes so much sense. This feels so good and so right. So welcome, Makani and Robin, to our show.
Thank you. It's great to be here with you.
Yes, indeed.
So y'all are so cute. And just so our listeners know, Robin and Makani are in the same space right now, sharing a microphone, and it's the cutest thing. So you just have to imagine in your mind the
and a
cutest thing
headset
that ever happened. And we're just going to start with just checking in with each other, right? It feels like there's so much moving at all times. We are completely different people from the moment when we said yes to do this conversation. Like life is changing that rapidly. So we just always start in with a checking in. How are we doing? Makani, how are you today, my love?
How am I doing? Wow, that's it's always an interesting question, right? Well, one, I'm really happy to be here. This is the first time I've seen my brother in person in like a year and a half. So this is our first COVID COVID, whatever epic
we know what you
getting
mean.
Together thing.
Wow.
So I have all the feelings. I'm like really glad to see him and looking forward to hanging out with my niece and nephew and and sister in love and the whole thing. So I feel really great in that respect, and also just wrapping my head around all the newness of all the things.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Well, I could say the same thing. I mean, both Makani and I, dealt with COVID from a distance. We both, dealt with this very long year, and trying to figure out ways to work together despite the distance and despite all the other tasks we have at hand. So it's great to see her. And I literally just walked in the door like 10 minutes before we got on, set up everything. So we haven't really talked. And so in fact, not only have we not talked, but we've never had this conversation before about our journey.
Oh my
God. This
God.
is it. So this is like, I don't know. We should send you all a check for the therapy. But of course, we're emergent strategy. We're not paying for stuff. We're sharing.
It's all sharing. It's all part of the ether. Right?
Exactly.
We don't pay or get paid.
and also it's just great to be with both of you. I mean, I'm such big fans, and there's so many lessons I learned from both of you. And every single emergent strategy book that comes out, I get it.
Ooh,
I get every single one.
That's
good.
Okay. I was like, that's good. I'll take that later. I'll lay down with that and just be like, yay. Well, and Autumn is in every single one. So I'm like, those are our texts. Those are our texts. It's great to have y'all here. And I love the present sweetness of that moment that y'all are just seeing each other and we get to be with y'all in this. Woo.
Wow.
Autumn, how are you, sister?
Oh my God. I'm so happy right now. And I have to say, it's interesting to know, I think for almost all of the sibling pairs that we've interviewed so far, it has also for them been the first time of being in this particular conversation in this way. And it's been so beautiful and healing. I think it's been actually very healing for me, and I think healing for everyone that we've talked to so far. So, but me right now, I'm hot, sitting in myself. And I had to turn off all of the fans and close the windows in order for the room audio to be okay for this recording. And we're having a heat wave in Minneapolis right now. So I'm just sitting here being with myself. Stewing. And also, I really appreciated, Makani, what you were bringing forward about just the newness. It's I feel like I'm finding my way every day. It's kind of trying to reorient to who can I interact with now, and how have we changed, and what's the same and what's different. And so last year, when we did the Apocalypse Survival miniseries, I interviewed these survivalist trainers who taught me this tool called the OODA loop. Which is something you practice in the survival scenario. You observe, orient, decide, act. Observe, orient, decide, act. And I've just had that in the front of my brain for the last couple of weeks, that every day feels like, I just feel like I'm OODA looping through my day. Yeah. Adrienne, how are you, my sister?
I am.
Are you stewing as well? Is it hot in Detroit?
It's hot in Detroit, and I just went outside and I was like, this day has been very hard. And it's been one of those days that's hard where I'm like, oh, like I can see the logistical reasons it's hard, and I can see the emotional reasons it's hard. And then someone's like, and also astrologically, like it's hard. So there's no like escape of the heart. It's just like, this is a hard day. Sometimes it's a hard Friday. But I went outside and I was stomping it out. I was like, okay, I need to move my body, move this energy. And I used my Joe Kata, my Joe stick. I don't know. I'm showing this.
I love that you have it with you
and
right
I just
now.
beat my bed for I was just like, I'm feeling too many feelings, and I need to be functional, because that's my way. Is I'm a functional person at the very least. No matter what's going on, I'm functional. So I think I'm in the first O, right, where I'm just like, I'm just observing that I don't feel functional. And I'm supposed to feel functional. And I think in a curiosity around like this coming out of the pandemic moment, I feel like everyone around me is dysfunctional, pretending to be functional. And I feel like we're all kind of like, can we stop pretending to be functional maybe?
Wow.
And just, so I'm taking the risk with all the things I had to do today. I canceled a thing. I never cancel a thing. I canceled, I was supposed to be on call. I was like, you know what? I'm feeling too many feelings and this call won't go well if I'm feeling all these feelings, The walk helped, all that moving and the emotion helped. And then this was like on the horizon. I was like, no matter what happens today, universe, I'm going to get to talk to Makani and Robin and my sister Autumn. And you can't take that away from me. And that's going to be good. Like it was that kind of day. So I'm in it. I'm here.
I'm so glad you made it to here.
I made it to here. I made it to here. Yeah, I made it to here. And I will say, I guess only other thing is kindness eases change. That line from Octavia Butler is really helping me get through the moments right now that I'm really noticing, I'm inside of like role and identity transitions and life transitions and also trying to physically move, which for a Virgo is like the worst. And I'm like, who's being kind to me during this time and who can't be kind to me during this time? And I'm moving towards the kindness. And it's some of the most amazing, strange people being like, girl, I got you. I got you. And other people, I'm like, I expected kindness from you. And they're like, no, I don't got you.
Wow.
Just like, okay, well, I'm going to move towards the kindness.
I feel like you smashing your bed with your Joe stick is such a good segue into
the flume of rage.
Our flume of rage.
Ready, angry.
Flume of rage, flume of rage, flume of rage, flume of rage. And one of the things I love is that I feel like you always offer the segue into the flume of rage.
I'd be mad.
It's like your rage is really accessible to you. That's great.
Well, this is a big change for me. I used to be like, I'm all kindness and flowers. And I was like, actually, I'm pretty angry. I'm actually pretty mad.
Pretty angry all the time.
So,
do you want to go first with your flume, Adrienne?
Sure. Well, I have so many things, but the range I wanted to share today is I'm in this process of moving. And so my lightweight flume of rage is about the fact that you're supposed to try to find out if you can move to a place, but no one has floor plans. Like everyone's like, here's 5 pictures, all elongated in some bizarre way. I'm like, I'm 3,000 miles from this place. So can I just see a floor plan? Like, what is this place? And they don't have them. And then when you email them, they're like, just contact us with questions. And you're like, can I just get a floor plan? And they're like, contact us for a viewing. I'm like, I don't know if I want to see it. I need a floor plan. So that's my lightweight flume of rage. And then my massive, like heartbreaking flume of rage is this residential school news that came down this week.
Well, the remains of 215 children have been found in a mass grave in Canada. Tributes have appeared at the site on the grounds of a former residential school in British Columbia. It was set up to forcibly assimilate Indigenous people and operated for nearly 90 years until closing in 1978. These schools were across Canada. An investigation found many of the 150,000 children who attended them suffered from physical abuse, rape, and malnutrition.
And I'm so angry about that being possible. Historically, I'm angry about that being possible. It feels familiar. Like I feel like I have that ancestral, like it just felt like as soon as I heard that, I was like, yeah, those are my babies too. Like I just felt this like, so many of us have had this happen in our history. And I don't feel like we're free of it. Like there's this like, we still don't know how to protect our babies. And when I think about apocalypse, like the main thing, and a lot of times I'm thinking about is like, what about the kids? I'm like, we can have our action adventure, Mad Max Fury Road, whatever style thing. But I'm like, our babies have to somehow survive this. And when they don't, they slip through the cracks. And who holds those little baby spirits? So I've been sitting with my ancestor altar. And I've been really trying to take in the stories, at least hear them. Sometimes that's the only thing we can do is just be like, I will read the story. Because these are all people there's people who are still living. They were like, I was in those those schools. I remember the kids disappearing. I was there. And so that's the rage. That's the range of rage that I'm sitting with today.
Yeah. Thank you. Floor is open if you are angry and want to say something about it. Makani, Robin?
You go first.
Me first? This is like what the oldest thing?
Yeah.
You're always be going first.
We do. That's what we do in our family. Everybody's like, the oldest should go first. I'm like, that feels okay.
I always had to go first.
You know, I actually was thinking about something similarly, Adrian. Like, I was really like touched by the so-called revelation in a similar way. Like, and I also, because I was sort of deep into Tulsa stuff and looking at those stories and then also hearing stories, you know, I live in Jackson, Mississippi. I hear stories in Mississippi about like, you know, there was a wood pulp kind of factory where folks did like cut down these little trees and did this wood pulping thing. And there was always stories about the owner. You know, if you asked for more money, he would just kill you, right? And people would say, oh, there was a bunch of people buried on that property. And then, of course, maybe this was maybe about 6 years ago, they found like dozens of skeletons, Black folks who had just quote unquote disappeared, who had like wanted, you know, some reckoning around like how they were treated or things like that. And there's so many of our folks who are disappeared. You know, Indigenous, Black, Indigenous, as you know, what we call Latinx folks, just so many people, and just how white supremacy and patriarchy, it like, this is what happens. And so how like completely hard, tragic, beyond sad, tired of being sad, you feel around all of these stories, to the point that you almost throw up a thing to protect yourself from this sadness, because it's just so hard. And then just like there's like the way it happens in these big waves, where there's like, if it was like 5 kids, would it be in the New York Times? No, but they matter, right? And so, and anyways, and just all the stories that we carry, some that we know, some we just carry in our bodies. And you know, one of the things that I remember my mom saying, which is interesting because I don't know if she'd say this now, but but I remember when I was younger, it was something to do at Vietnam, and they had these, you know, pictures of like people being napalmed, and you know, and you had the monks who were like setting themselves on fire and all these things, and I was like, basically like at 7, like, that's just a lot, you know, like, you know, and one of the things she said is, well, the least we can do is be a witness. And that always hit me, right? Like, it's like, it is so much harder to live through it as the actual victim than it is to be a witness. And even though we do have choices, because we get to turn off. So anyway, I just, it's like, I don't like feeling the rage, but also feeling like the responsibility and accountability to witness, like you said, to go to like walk toward it, as opposed to shut it down.
Right. You know, it's interesting because I feel, I mean, my flume of rage is tied directly to death as well, and particularly the way we either value, devalue, or hide or erase this death. So the places I'm thinking about, one, Palestine, 66 children killed in bombing raids. And we still have these people like Lloyd Austin and other, you know, Negroes in the Biden administration who will say, you know, we're lockstep with Israel and we're paying for this. And so the combination, it was sort of 3 things at once happened that kind of pissed me off. One is the ongoing sort of genocidal violence against Palestinians that we underwrite with our tax dollars, to the commemoration around Tulsa, which I have to say I'm kind of maybe people say I'm curmudgeonly about this, but I was so disappointed with the way that the commemoration around Tulsa centered around the loss of property.
Yes.
And and how, it's about wealthy Black people. And the fact of the matter is that, one, I always ask the question, what's worth more, a Black-owned hotel or a Black porter or domestic worker?
Yeah.
And there's really no discussion of the deaths of working people. And the fact is that the vast majority of Black folks in Tulsa in 1921 were not up and coming and wealthy.
That's right.
Right. Right.
And I've talked about this elsewhere, but that kind of pissed me off. And it also then linked to this other thing, the third thing, which is, there's a lot of celebration around Raoul Peck's Exterminate All the Brutes, which is the HBO special.
Right.
And people love it. And they think it's the most radical thing we've seen. And I like Raoul Peck. I think he's a great filmmaker. I think he's brilliant. But I think this was an utter failure. It's an utter failure in the way that, one, you're talking about settler colonialism, and you never mentioned Palestine. Never mentioned, the other kinds of violences that took place. And you basically make the argument that some things are just too complicated to talk about. And, you don't deal with our refusal to accept the terms of this violence. And unless we do that, any talk about reparations will still come back to property. That's like, how do you pay for property?
That's right.
And I just think we just have to do better in the public discourse about how we value our lives.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Just gratitude to all three of you for what you are bringing forward. I live in Minneapolis, so my flume in this moment is just the Black Death Parade. Actually, and I should say, I don't know the racial identity of the person who was murdered yesterday by police in Uptown Minneapolis. It's just like 10 blocks from where I live. They haven't released almost any details yet about it, but it's inevitable for me that the story writes itself, because it's like, oh, there was a warrant for this person's arrest. And I mean, this is the story that the sheriffs are telling, that there was a warrant. We tried to arrest them. They produced a handgun, and then they were shot through their, car window. And because, we have so much footage now of armed white men getting, peacefully arrested, booked by the police, it's like, it's hard for me to not assume, it would be impossible for me to not assume the racial identity of this person. And the same day that this killing happened yesterday at like 4:50 a.m., the city sent city workers to George Floyd Square at 38th in Chicago to begin removing the memorial. And activists very quickly, did what they could to erect new barriers and to retake the space. But it's just so insidious, the way the city continues to just speak out of both sides of its mouth, saying on the one hand that we're working with the community, we're respecting the community's wishes. And on the other hand, moving under the cover of dark to remove these, pieces of the memorial, these sacred pieces, into storage units somewhere, right? And obviously it's extremely complicated, right? It's an extremely complicated situation because there is an impact to the people who live directly in that neighborhood for the ongoing memorial site to be there. And it's just so clear that there's no actual, there's not a sense of cooperative action being taken to figure out how to, I always think in terms of, I felt this for many years, right? That these moments of disaster, moments of apocalypse, they are moments of, they're opportunities to reimagine, to create autonomous spaces, to, reconfigure how we even orient to a sense of commons or public space. And this, to me, beyond the George Floyd Square being a memorial, it also is an autonomous zone, right? And that is so threatening to the city government. And also it's just profoundly imaginative, So my hope is that there's some way for us to maintain that imaginative, autonomous space. But the just the feeling in the city is so heightened and so hot, and it is so intense right now. And it's just because we've now had at least 2, if not more, additional police killings just in the last couple of months, even with the Chauvin verdict. It's like there hasn't been space for any kind of the stretching, healing, putting in the support structures before the next layer of trauma is added on. So it's very intense. It just continues to be very intense. And I think to that point you were making, Makani, about the moving toward, I think I have really struggled with this a lot this year. Like living inside of Minneapolis through all of this, I've really struggled with the extent to which I can move toward any of what's happening. And trying to just maintain structural stability for myself and my family while also not feeling like I'm frozen.
Yeah.
If that makes sense?
Yes.
Yes, it does.
And I feel like listening to all of us, I really feel this sense of, the body is the territory of freedom. Like I have this sense of like, oh, they're taking our space. They're taking this. They move us around. But the rage that we feel, that rage is the ritual. Like you can't take that. You can't take that from me. I will not. That. I won't. I can't. And it, I'm like, oh, I want to calm myself down. Like each week, I think maybe we'll stop doing the flume of rage. Like maybe we won't need to do it. And it's like, no, like the ritual continues because the instigation that rage continues and the onslaught continues. So thank you all for practicing it with us, being in the ritual of our Black rage together. And let's take a breath in. If you're at home listening, you might want to burn a little something. Feel your feelings. That's one of our favorite things to do. We feel our feelings.
Just don't burn your house down.
Not today. Okay.
Good advice.
And we're going to pivot into this conversation with Makani and Robin that we're really excited to have, where we're just going to time travel with y'all. We want to know all the things and not all the, whatever you feel like sharing, but there is a lot of curiosity. I'm an Octavia Butler scholar, and she talks about shaping change, and I feel like you two have shaped so much change in your lifetimes, and so these questions are really to understand a little bit about what shaped you, right? So the first, most basic question is, where are y'all from?
That's even complicated.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a little bit. I mean, we're from New York. Grew up in New York early. And it's an interesting story. I'm going to speak first only because from now on, I'm not going to speak first. And there's a reason for this.
Yes.
It has to do with the fact that Makani's older than me, 18 months and 10 days. So she's my big sister. So she knows more and she was there before me. So, and I want to actually begin with a story about Makani, if you don't mind. So, our parents got married in Boston, ended up in New York. I think we both were born basically in it's at Mount Sinai Hospital, but we kind of started in Brooklyn. But then my father and mother ended up buying a house in Queens, in Hollis. And so when and I want to begin this, I want Makani to sort of finish this, because this had a huge impact on me. When Makani was old enough to start school in Queens, I was about 3.5, right? And she was 5. I was going on 4 years old. And they sent her to basically a white school that was being integrated. So, I mean, she dealt with racism in a way that Kamala Harris never had to when she got on the bus in Berkeley. And she dealt with racism that actually made her sick. And I'll let her talk about sick, like pneumonia.
Wow.
And my earliest memory outside of my house was standing outside of a hospital on the first floor, and her room was in the first floor of this hospital, and they wouldn't allow kids in. And I just remember talking to her and talking to my mom, because my mom was in there too, our mom, through a kind of a gated window.
Wow.
And she was in there sick, right? Because of the racism she dealt with as a 5-year-old. That's one of my earliest memories, right? So I want, if you could, I don't know if you think it's worth sharing, but I just think it's a great story.
Well, I've written about it too, but let's see what to say. That was actually a pivotal thing. I had started off actually in a Black school in the neighborhood, because Hollis was changing right before our eyes. It felt like when we moved there was like one Black family on the block, and then like blink, and there was like one Polish family who couldn't move, and a bunch of Black people, right? And they were very sweet. I actually, they used to babysit us, the oldest daughter, and so I actually ended up eating Polish food as a very young child. It's like very odd. And then mom was approached, I guess, or at least she was the one who made the decision, because I think it's also important to say that our mother was an activist. Yeah. And even though there was things that shifted in her life that made her less of that, but when we were younger, she was very much so. In high school, very much so, an activist. And I learned from her friend, Franny Beal,
friend in high school,
who was her best friend in high school, is also, as you know, a famous feminist, and all those things, that they actually founded this citywide left youth thing together. And also another person. Oh gosh, I'm going to forget his name. Not Mandrake. He's a famous trade union person, or was a famous trade union person. I'll think of his name in a minute. But the three of them were buddies and formed this thing. So our mother had this history, right? This radical history, that some of which I didn't even learn about until her, was that 75th birthday? Was that
when Fran?
That was, I think, her 75th birthday. So anyway, so my understanding is what happened was that that I'm not sure if it was the NAACP or some organization asked for volunteers, for folks to send their children to this public school in Little Neck, Long Island. And so there was one of us for each grade. And so because that was all they were going to take, they were like, it was going to be revolution, I guess, if it was 3 for each grade. And it was hard. It was very hard. The parents were outside, cursing and throwing things. And we were told, of course, like that was Negro behavior, was to, hold your head up, be proud. Do not like that was like, that was what we were told to do, that we were there to be models and examples. In fact, we were chosen because we had good grades, or we seemed smart, because we looked a certain way. I had like long pigtails and all these things, right? So we were like being these model Negroes in this like really intense situation. In fact, I still think of Little Neck as Redneck, Long Island, in my mind.
Wow.
And and not to belabor the whole story, but there was an incident where, when you're that young, you're supposed to hold hands, at least at that point, in the way school was, school culture. You'd have a buddy, you'd hold hands. And when you'd come in and out of recess or whatever. And because I was Black, I had to walk behind everybody because no one had to hold my hand. And I was just kind of through with that. I think there was a thing. And then something happened where someone pushed me and I ended up falling and having my knee busted open. And there was a Black janitor who was the only person who would help me put a Band-Aid on. And I was just like, okay, I'm done. Like, this is like a whole lot. No. So then I literally stood outside in the cold in my underwear until I got pneumonia. So I actually tried to get pneumonia because my understanding was that was how I could not go to school. So I would literally go outside in just my panties and just kind of like be out in the cold and hope that I get pneumonia. And I finally did. And to the extent which I had to be hospitalized. The good news,
I didn't know that part.
So the good news was,
I just knew that you were sick.
Yeah, but that's what happened.
And a strategist. That
it's
is
it was like, what could I do about this? Because not going was not an option. Right. Because we needed to be brave, all these things. But what it did teach me and how it did start me on this path of organizing was one that there was clearly it was injustice in the world. Like that was clearly yes. And that people coming together to fight it helped. And then soon after, our parents divorced and we were in Harlem, which was so good for me. Just as nasty as the ground was, I wish I could kiss the ground. It was just so much better to there was like Black Santa Claus, it was like that song, Everything Black. It was like, Harlem in the sort of like, 67, 66. Mm-hmm. And I had a teacher who was a young Black teacher who was the antidote. Her name was Miss Willis. And it's also where I met like my longtime forever like BFF, Leslie Hunter. Now had Leslie Hunter Gadsden. We're still friends. And, she just made everything make sense, right? She, we learned about Black history. She really supported us, and it was just the opposite experience. And it was like Black people are the antidote for everything. And so I just really fell in love with Black people.
Right. Well, I fell in love with Black people. My experience was very different going to Harlem. So let me back up, because one thing you probably need to know is like, so who are our parents? Yeah. Our mother was born in Jamaica, grew up in Jamaica. When she was basically 10 years old, came to this country, lived with an aunt, first in Harlem and also later in Queens. And that's how she ended up in Queens, going to school with Fran Beal. And she moved here about 1950. In fact, 1950, I think exactly. So I think she was turning 11. So that's her story. Our father, who passed away last February, it's a little bit of a complicated story, which I won't go into, but he was born in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, raised by his aunt and uncle, who basically kind of informally adopted him. And so they got together. And there's two things I just want to add to the story in terms of my own experience. One is that, yes, our mother was an activist, but she also dealt with, I think, a very complicated domestic violence situation in the household, which suppressed or attempted to suppress her own desires. So one of the things, our mom had this capacity to basically do anything, to make anything, to create anything. She was a true artist. So she made these busts using clay of Dr. Martin Luther King and JFK without any training at all. And they were like splitting images, beautiful busts. And in one of my father's fits of rage, he smashed them both, right? He ended up, for reasons which I won't go into, like leaving and going to Seattle. He had an affair with this woman. They end up getting married. Now, it is true that we moved from this terrifying place, which for me wasn't so terrifying because I wasn't in school. Like I was still at home. Right. I was at home with my mother, So I actually, it was nirvana for me. Right. And then we ended up moving, it was like immediate downward mobility. So our first stop was living with my mother's cousin, Arlene, and her two sons. And she had just split from her husband, and her best friend, Gigi, and her daughter, and me and Makani and my mom, all in, what was it, two bedroom apartment in Harlem.
My God.
So if you haven't had the experience,
so like all the single ladies and their children,
right. Yes,
exactly. Mm-hmm. And it was a close knit situation, but that's how we came to Harlem, but that's how I experienced it, and then started school. And we both went to PS 28, which was on 155th and St. Nicholas, between Amsterdam and St. Nicholas, still there. And I didn't have a Miss Willis. I had a German kindergarten teacher named Miss Klein, who was a fascist. I mean, straight up fascist. I think she was like a Nazi who was able to escape, the Nuremberg trials or something like that. And then first grade, I had a teacher named Miss Lavitan, a white woman, whose punishment for, these are all kids of color, basically, and let me be clear, Black and Puerto Rican kids and a couple of white kids. When you got in trouble, she'd make you stand in a trash can.
That's right.
And say, I'm garbage. I'm
garbage.
I'm garbage. God. That's my introduction to public school. And I'll never forget the day that I was like home, taking a bath or something. And living in New York in those days, your water was kind of orange or yellow because of the rust. It just was like no one ever took. You don't take a bath in clear water. It's like, and we had roaches. We lived with the roaches. You turn off the lights, turn the lights back on, and it's like just stomp away, right? And that was our life. But I remember being in the bathtub and figuring out how to spell the word concentration. Like I figured it out, first grade. And I was so excited that I ran to my teacher, Miss Lavitan, and burst out I could spell concentration. And she's like, you're a liar. So I can. You're just lying. And she wouldn't even hear me. She wouldn't even let me spell it for her. And I got in trouble for that. So, that was my introduction to school, but it was not, to be very, very clear, it wasn't my introduction to education. And that's where Makani comes in. Because Makani taught me how to read. She taught me beginning with hop on pop. She taught me how to read. She has been my teacher from those early days, introducing me to stuff. So that's between Makani and my mother. That was the source of my education, not school.
And let me just say this too, that oddly enough, and this is going to seem so ironic now, right? But we were tracked really differently. Robin was experiencing like the total jacked up tracking, and I had what they called IGC classes. And it was different. Like the people were tracked. They had basement classes. They didn't have light. They were literally in the basement.
That's right.
And the IGC classes were on the top floor. So you had like sunlight coming in. It was like the most absolutely jacked up system. And
trash.
And what I do appreciate about, Mom, as she was, because this was a really, it was a really difficult thing for her, like all of what she was going through. We won't go into all the details of, all the ways in which, actually for the three of them, her, my who I call aunt because she's older than me, but she's our cousin, Arlene, and all of that was like, they were going through this major transition. And also just a shout out to Arlene because she was really our protector.
Yes.
So, when my father tried to come back and bully and pull us out of the place, she whooped his ass. I mean, she just
whoa.
whooped his ass. And I mean, she did have judo, and in fact, love to our cousin who just lost his daughter, who's a longtime coach of the U.S. Judo Olympic team. So there's like a whole judo side of the family.
Yeah, the Liddy family, Alexa Liddy, who passed away.
Alexa Liddy passed away.
Mm-hmm. She's only 30.
Yes, super sad.
And Eddie Liddy and Claudia were Arlene's sons. Yes. And I should say that Big Eddie Sr., established a combination record store and judo school.
That's right. Yeah, the
Harlem.
dojo record store.
Those things belong together.
Right. I feel like it was the first Black-owned one in Harlem, but he was, and so the whole family was judo. So when Arlene they all did judo. So like my father had to avoid them.
Yeah, so she basically, he said he was doing this and doing that. Not only did she judo his ass down the stairs, but then she took a stick and then beat the shit out of him on top of that. And it was the first time I think that I felt safe, because I was like, as crazy as it was, even though we were like all in the same bed, head, then feet, then head, then feet, and all the craziness, right? Eating, like fried chicken necks, and Arlene saying that what did she say? They were rats or something crazy. So we'd shut up and not ask questions. She would say, she'd just say all kind of smart aleck things. But I mean, as an older person, I have so much appreciation for how they pull together, how they develop like this sort of this way of getting through without the men who were all abusive, right? And difficult. And even though there was like all of these things, I think the other thing that we learned during that time, at least for me, like I'm so grateful for the things that I got. I felt like it was like after my experience, right, in Little Neck, it was so crazy. But also what we learned was like the importance of coming together, like that good things can happen when people pull together, not only in terms of that, but also organizing, like there was protests at our school that our mom was involved in around the overcrowding of the school. Our school had a red, black, and green flag actually as part of we actually had Iceberg Slim as a Black History Month speaker, which I don't even understand why when you think back on it. It's
but you also had,
we had Nikki Giovanni.
Yeah, Nikki Giovanni, but remember we had
talking about Marian Anderson.
Yeah, Marian Anderson.
Of course, I remember that.
So Makani actually gave Makani at the assembly. I think it was like a corsage. Or something.
In fact, I pricked her by accident with a pin. I don't know why they were having this.
Marian Anderson.
I know,
and she never sang the same since. That was when she retired.
It was so terrible. I was like, why are they giving a 7-year-old this long ass pin and a flower to pin? Yeah, it was I mean, it wasn't, it was like, it was really bad.
Wow. Oh my God. Y'all, these stories are so amazing. I'm over here like lapping it up. I wanted to pull this thread on organizing, because y'all have talked now about your mother as an activist, about sort of getting, it sounds like, inducted into organizing in part through just having to do that sort of immediate interventions on the systems that you were right in the middle of, right? But one of the other questions we had for y'all was around, like, one of the things that we've been asking a lot of the siblings is, how would you describe your moment of kind of political awakening, politicization, the moment where you're sort of, another way of thinking about it is like the sort of stepping off the cliff of like the way that your family was politically oriented into the space of, oh, there's this movement and I'm stepping into the river, and would love to just know a little bit about that moment for y'all and how, I mean, given how I really hear you, Makani, as older, but given how close in age y'all are, how You know, in our family, Adrian is really, really older.
Ancient. I am so ancient. It's really serious.
But yeah, like how distinct was that for the two of you?
Right.
How much in concert did it happen?
Right. Well, I'll start. For me, it's waves. It's basically like two waves. And the first wave really picks up where Makani left off. I mean, when when my mom was participating in protests around the school being overcrowded, she took us to those protests. I remember marching around in the cold saying, overcrowded, overcrowded. And, we had classrooms that were designed for 25 students with 50 students in them, And this is also around the time, because, given our age, this is around the time of Ocean Hill, Brownsville, that is community control, the struggle over, who's going to teach the kids. And I had a great third grade teacher, Jane Andreas, who's very progressive. And in fact, the school tried to drive her out. And our mother was really one of three parents who defended her as she was using kind of experimental methods of teaching. So that, and the fact that she'd take us to places like, the United Nations, the fact that our mom did things that were completely out of the ordinary and didn't care. She walked around the streets with no shoes. She was kind of a hippie, poncho, long hair. I remember the day that we were at the museum, and it was a big Buddha, and my mom, in front of everybody, got on her knees and prayed to this Buddha. And Makani and I are like, what are we going to do? Are we going to run? Should we go? Like, what are we going to do? Like, we're so embarrassed. But she was modeling a certain kind of behavior. She's saying that, first of all, there's some things greater than us, right? And you have to recognize that. Two is that whenever there's a fight, you go there and stand with the people, even if it's three people, And so in some ways, that, especially living in Harlem in the 1960s, when every corner there's someone on the street talking about something, giving some kind of lecture, where, I wrote about this, but there was a drink called Afro Cola, that they used to sell. It came in a blue can with the Africa on it. And we drink that. It was probably killing us, right? And of course, by some white company,
it was
but
by the
we used to drink it.
Though. It
was it's like the nectar of the motherland, right? So we would drink it, and you cannot go anywhere without being aware of Africa, without someone coming up to you and saying Habari Gani, without being aware. And also, you think about all the people who grew up in our neighborhood, in like 156th, 157th, between Broadway and Amsterdam. There's like politics there. But then the second wave, and then you grow up, you get older, you go to high school, and we end up in California for various reasons, which maybe we'll go into. But when you're in high school, you care about things like I care about things like my hair. Back in the days of the shag, I care about like having a silk scarf. I care about like, am I going to get a car, and what's my car going to look like? I care about parties and stuff like that. And it was the second wave when Makani goes off, and she's always been an honor student. I've been like third rate. I'm still being tracked, by the way. It's like, that's why I got imposter syndrome, But I was sort of third wave, and she was always ahead. She was a leader at Pasadena High School. She was, outstanding student, blah, blah. And then she goes off to college. And what I really appreciated was everything she was learning, she'd figure out a way to pass it on to me. And I wasn't really listening at first. But that, without saying much more than that, that began the second, more serious wave of reading, of thinking, of being active. And so by the time I got to college, I actually had at least an inkling of politics because Makani was training me.
Wow.
How wonderful.
Yeah. I don't know how
about for you, Makani?
That always is, but thank you. I had this really weird thing, right? That was like these super expectations that were just odd. My grandmother, when Dr. King died,
Right.
my grandmother said to me, I saw Dr. King come to me and say that, and basically Dr. King gave instructions for what I was supposed to do with my life. Right.
That's true.
And it was like pretty overwhelming. I was like 8, not even 8, and she was just like, Dr. King said that you're supposed to open these schools. Schools were too big, and there should be like neighborhood schools, and that you're gonna like, you need to do this and organize this and blah blah blah. And I was like, even though in my 7-year-old body I felt very grown, like there was a part of me that felt very grown, just small, right? But I was like, I don't know about this. And even as much as I have done, and it's really not that much, like, I mean, educationally, I'm, there's like all kinds of more things I could do educationally. I don't, in terms of, getting my degrees or all these things, but I would do things, and my grandmother would come visit or come see me speak or whatever. And she'd go, that was good, but you're not doing what Dr. King said you're supposed to do. And so actually,
wow,
so
Grandma,
outstanding, whatever, it just never quite was it. And literally, like,
I mean, when Dr. King visits you in a vision, that's like a setup for
it is really, right? And, and I was like, I was looking at my yearbook for another reason, because anyway, I won't even go into why, but there is like an activist that's like, some, that people were thinking was a youth activist who wasn't even. And I was like, I went to high school with her. She's not a youth activist. Like, here's her, like, here's where she signed my yearbook, right? So
I love the petty.
Anyway, that's a whole nother story.
I love it. You're like,
But anyway, so I was looking at my yearbook, and it was like full of like, in fact, what my best friend who I will see tomorrow jokingly wrote, well, you're not living up to the expectations, right? Because it was like teachers would tell me that all the time. Like, I would get an A in a class, and they'd be like, well, that was, and that's also something our dad would say. Like,
oh yeah,
he would have this thing where some people call that an Asian F. Like he had that kind of F. Like if you didn't get an A, it was like an F, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that so there's a part of me that never really absorbed whatever that outstanding thing was, and still don't. It's like, people go like, and literally, like, when the thing with BLM happened, which is just the foundation, not the right. I was like, I hear my grandmother like, it's still not what King said you do. So I was like, okay, damn.
Wow.
But that said, obviously the experience of being, as Robin said, that wave. And I think in college, already being sort of identified, which is a gift in many ways. It's a gift to be a Black woman and people have high expectations of you. Like, I don't want to belittle that. Right. That's like a thing that doesn't happen for a lot of folks. So I came into school with that sense, like, well, I'm supposed to do stuff. And if there's something that's not being done, that's my job to do. And so I ended up becoming part of the basically leadership of organizing the statewide alliance of Black students as a college and becoming the first chair. And so traveling to other campuses, right, organizing. And then I was also editor of the so-called Third World newspaper, which is called The Blade, the Cutting Edge of Change. Right. That those experiences, and then also just being, because we were college students, right? So we were reading shit like Amilcar Cabral and stuff like that was just like blowing our little minds. And I just felt like everybody, like I had that evangelist, like everybody needs to know this shit. Like I was the first person to ever read it. Like it was just like, but also really grateful for folks like Cheryl Dearman, who was very close to Angela and Fania, and who were like some elders who were like, or Akinyele Amoja, or Rashida Mbambola, or, folks like that. Because my freshman year, there were so few Black people at UC Irvine. We had big brothers and big sisters. And Rashida Mbambola, they were like, oh, her ass is political. We're going to put her with the political Black person.
Oh, wow.
And that's how I met the House of Amoja, which really shaped so much of how I understand the world. And then, moving from that, holding that still, because I'm still close. Those are still family, right? The whole, the whole RNA and Napo and all those folks that shaped me. That's how I got my name, right? Like I wasn't born Makani Temba, and that was like a really important point where it was like, not only is there like this sort of white, messed up thing that's happening, that's white supremacy and racism, and then there's patriarchy, but there's also this beautiful community, that you can be a part of, and you can understand like class and intersectionality and like all these things. And then also not only that, but it was a whole world, because I got to meet people from all over the world.
Right.
And that was completely life-changing. I mean, I met Betty Shabazz. She was like the first like really feminine organizer that I met. Like, because a lot of the organizers I knew were like more hard. They wore, like, that was who I was modeling myself. I was wearing fatigues, I was like doing all these things. Okay. And then I met this person who was like, had all the politics, but she was like a mom and a grandma. And I was like, oh, there's room for me to be my whole self. So I was so blessed.
Right. Well, in my senior year in high school, I have the distinction of having thrown the party of the year.
That's true. He did.
Okay.
Oh. Yes, the GQ affair.
The GQ affair. Motherfuckers danced the heating vents out of the floor.
So this is my trajectory. So I begin here in 1980, party of the year. And luckily for me, no one has high expectations.
Right.
Thank goodness. Although I did live in Makani's shadow. Like what I got something different. I did get like, how come you're not more like your sister? How come you're not more studious like your sister? How come you're not, I got that my entire life. So in some ways, the expectations may not have been high, but there were some expectations. Meanwhile, Makani's hanging out with all these folks. I met Akinyele. You should stop.
Yeah, for the sirens. Sorry.
Yeah, we hear them.
There we go. So I met Akinyele when I was, I think I might have been 11th grade. And, he was working with Makani at Cal State LA at the time. And I remember him giving me some literature and just being inspired by the work they were doing, but really not knowing much about it. It wasn't until I got to college at Long Beach State. So I didn't go to UC. I went to California State University at Long Beach, which is, kind of second tier state university. The fees were $90 a semester in those days. And that's when, between the things that Makani's shuttling to me that she's reading, which includes not just the Black nationalist literature, but the Marxist literature, I hook up with a brother on campus who is really the one representative of the All African People's Revolutionary Party, Shabaka. And then we also, and also taking Black Studies courses. So the combination of those things together, I was in a study group with the APRP. And, I'm reading Walter Rodney, C.L.R. James, Kwame Nkrumah again. And then, of course, Marx and Lenin. And that was transformative for me, and then became involved in the Black Student Alliance. And in fact, Makani had already established the statewide alliance. I remember going to one of the meetings as vice chair of the Black Student Union at Long Beach State later, and was just, was less an organizer. Although I did bring Queen Mother Moore to Long Beach State.
Oh,
and I got to meet her.
Wow.
and that was like a huge thing. I mean, and brought her to speak. I couldn't get like 10 people in the room, and I had to go to like this to the student union and just gather up Black folk to show up to hear her speak. So that was like my slow process of kind of discovery. But the most important thing was that opened the door for my academic interests in Black history in particular. And like a lot of people in my generation coming up in the early 80s, I wasn't even interested in contemporary Black. I was initially interested in like ancient Egypt, like everyone else. Like
Hotep,
right? It's like that was my thing, and then I found I had to learn all these languages. It's like, no, I think I'll stick with the 20th century. So
he's on back down to
that was my entry. So I came that way. So and then Makani and I end up in some of the same organizations later. Left-wing organizations.
Yeah,
I mean, you want to say what your
initial... No, we so
like,
I became much more of a Marxist. And although in those days, and correct me if I'm wrong about this, I didn't sense a deep contradiction between being a Marxist and a nationalist.
No, I didn't.
We just did both, and we just thought it made sense.
Right.
Like I never disavowed the nationalism as I become much more of a Marxist. And Makani basically recruited me into the Communist Workers' Party, and I joined right away. And so we were like doing this work for a couple of years around the time of the Jackson campaign, and she got involved. She was high up in the Jackson campaign in those days, and I was just like a lowly worker.
I love it. I love all of this. Like, y'all, I mean, I think y'all should write a memoir together. As I'm listening, I'm just like the stories, or to do an audio memoir, because I'm like, this, I feel the tips of all the icebergs. Like we're like dancing from tip to tip to tip, because there's so many directions we could go in. And it's really rich stuff. Like this stuff, I feel like we just don't get enough of this. Like, how do we actually get on these paths? What are the both intentional and accidental ways we come across these ideologies that shape our lives? And even hearing stuff like, oh, it didn't used to be like, so at odds. Like you could have that political complexity and be in the work, be about it in a different way. And I'm curious, and y'all can make this leap however you want to, right? Which was stories, whatever. But we want to ask, what, in terms of what you're doing now, right? If we time travel from those early years in the left organizations, and then y'all both have created, you've written, you've published, you've shown up in movement as strategist and historian, what feels aligned about the work you currently do in the world, and what feels distinct or different to you now?
I always feel like what Robin does feels aligned. I'm always learning. The depth and nuance of his scholarship and reflections are just awesome and amazing. I feel like and even though we have to work, we're not that good at like making sure each other knows what we're doing like that.
Yes, that's true.
It's really so I actually, quiet as it's kept, I run his Facebook page, right? And so I am actually him on Facebook.
Oh my God.
It's hilarious. And so I and so there'd be mentions and I'd be like, oh snap, this is a really good interview. Let me post this to his page, right? And I read it and I'm like, oh man, this is really important. And I think, oh my God, I feel that way about my niece too, his daughter, who's also incredibly brilliant. It's like, oh, I need to talk more about things but it always feels like we're so like stuff is so crazy. So yeah, I don't, there isn't anything that I've read of Robbins or that he does that I felt like wasn't aligned. I always feel inspired by it. I feel like where I am right now is, there's a lot going on in a movement, a lot of layers. And so I find myself digging deeper into my spiritual practice. And that has a lot to do with my mother. Like things that I never thought I would do, like listening to Paramahansa Yogananda chants like I do now, right? And it's like, wow, I never thought I'd do that. I'm a meditator.
Hallelujah.
And I think about what does that mean in terms of Black liberation and universal liberation, right? Like, or multiversal, like liberation.
Yep.
Like quantum physics, like, I feel like I've become like a geek in its application to like how I work with people and how I think about, and also just as well, Adrienne, you know this because we geek out on this stuff, but it's like how we help people understand they're just a millisecond away from freedom, right? Like
right there.
And right there, like just a breath away. And so I feel like all of the things, my entire journey, the hard parts, the pain, the abuse, the things, the survival, the places where I was, the wrong one, or just all the stuff, just like it feels like, I feel like the end of Siddhartha, like the river. Like I feel like I'm at the river right now, still sorting out what everything is.
Wow.
I love that. What about for you, Robin?
Yeah, it's a really excellent and important question. I feel like we're always aligned. And we're always aligned not because we're always in conversation. We should be, and that's my fault. I'm not in conversation with. I'm just like always running because I'm always behind doing so many things for other people. But we're always aligned. We always connect without having to even talk about it. But I discover Makani's writings, not because she sends them to me. She discovers mine. We've done stuff together. We did the piece about Highlander after the fire. We've done a few things together. But I wish we could do more. We're trying to do. She's helping me now with my book, Black Body Swinging. It's thinking about Jackson and thinking about specifically not just Jackson, but a case in Mississippi, right? So, but I'm sometimes the last one to know. Like I had to learn from Barbara Ransby that Makani took over the leadership of Black Lives Matter. Thank goodness for Barbara.
The BLM Global
the foundation.
With Monique Vandelli.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know. She hinted at it, but of course, for security reasons, she couldn't really talk about it. But it's not that we're hiding from each other. It's just that our lives are such that we just trust each other. But the one thing I have to say, I won't say it's about alignment or non-alignment. We're very different people in terms of our relationship. Like I'm not I support movements, but I'm not an organizer. Mm-hmm. I'm like the last organizer. I'm a scholar.
Yeah.
I'm a writer. That's what I do primarily. And I'm very, small C Catholic, which is why I have friends in every single dueling movement. And one of my problems that people come to me to be like, how Makani says she's a meditator. Well, they think I'm a mediator. I'm neither. I don't do that. So I got people coming from all sides, complaining, talking about this group and that group, and I'm trying to just sort of be connected because for me, I'm not a leader. The movement is where I learn. I'm a student of movement, and not just learn in terms of trying to write the story of movements, learn in terms of trying to figure out a theoretical framework to understand our history.
That's right.
From what movements teach me, and so that's where our roles are very, very different, and yet they're complementary in many ways.
Wow. Thank God for y'all. Really appreciate the small C Catholic as a framework for like how you're situating yourself. Okay. Can y'all go just a little bit longer?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Because we have this one other question that we want to ask before we go to top culture, which is, Makani's like, I'm already anxious about Top Culture.
I'm doubly anxious.
But the final, which I wish wasn't the final, I just wish we could keep talking for hours. But the final question for the interview is, what do you wish the world knew about your sibling?
Oh, goodness.
Or what do you think the world should know?
Yes.
About your sibling?
That's a great question. It's one time, I had to introduce Robin, and they told me I only had a minute. So I ended up writing a poem, which I wish I had in front of me, because I feel like all of those things in the poem were like all the things, right? Because I was also annoyed they only gave me 1 minute, but I was like, fine, I'll show
if you want to send it to us, we will slip it in. We'll find a way.
I will send it to you. But I think, aside from what people already know about his brilliant work and analysis, one is he works so hard. He works so hard. His work ethic is ridiculous. And it's something that started when he was young, and it never left. The other thing is he's a bomb-ass cook. And
coming from the cook herself, right?
No, but he's like more of a chef than I am. And then and then the other thing is that he is such an incredible caretaker. Like, he's a lot of times people think of that's all on the X, chromosome and everything, but it's like he is just such an amazing caretaker. The way he loves people, the way he makes sure they do what they need to do, whether it's violin lessons or whatever, that's usually him, right? And so all that shit that people are asking him to do, so this is for the world. Like, you're asking him to write these little blurbs and do these things and comment and whatever. Just understand that he's got a full life, like a mama life. He's got like a mama life on top of his scholar life. And does it all. I mean, even though when you do a lot of things, you feel like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. How is it? He does it all amazing. He does it all amazing. That's what people need to know. And if you can get away with not asking him to do shit, think about it 2 or 3 times and figure out who else you might ask.
I love this boundary you are setting for the world, for your sibling.
That is sibling love. That is sibling
also,
love.
I want to come to your next family reunion, since both of you know how to cook.
Makani's a real cook. She's got all the traditions passed down to her. It's interesting because on the one hand, I so appreciate the boundary creation. That's actually really important. I wish, but she also hasn't seen me in like a year plus. So it's like, you're coming over to dinner tonight, and we're probably gonna do takeout.
But probably you'll be the one to order it.
Yeah. But in terms of what the world needs to know about Makani, there's so many things. In fact, the fact that she runs my Facebook page and that she announces to the world that I need protection is exactly her personality. I mean, she taught me, she raised me, she protected me, but she protected me. Like, she would fight for me, like physically fight. I mean, I don't remember having a fight, because it got, Makani was my big sister,
Wow.
And there's so many things she's done, both as a kid and as a grown person, to protect not just me, but everybody. Our family, her kids, movement people. She is courageous and selfless in terms of standing up, even when the circumstances are not clear. She's not going to step back and say, well, let me just assess it and see, what the outcome is going to be. She'll jump in the fight right away. And she's always been that way, always, like, protector, and I so appreciate that. But in addition to that, she's a great parent, and a lot of people don't see that, because what you see is the public persona. You see, Makani traveling around doing this work. But to be a great parent means you have to be present, and you have to be able to listen. And she's not just a parent for her biological kids. She's a parent for other kids, and I won't go into that whole story, but she takes care of, she's been taking care of kids even when the father of those kids don't seem to be that interested, and so who does that, right? She's a great auntie for my children, and she's just a regular Black woman, in the best sense of the word, not trying to be above everything. She's not the Black bourgeoisie. And I hate the Black bourgeoisie. I'm just saying.
Sometimes, though, my shoes are definitely Black bourgeoisie. Sorry.
You have some fancy things.
The red bottoms.
Fancy things that don't make you the bourgeoisie.
Before we move into the top culture, just want to thank y'all for the range and vulnerability of the stories that you shared with us, because it just feels like I feel like I can't wait to go back and just kind of listen in to this wisdom. And I'm not kidding. I'm like, I would publish y'all's shared memoir or stories,
I just love that you're at a point in your career where you can say that.
Oh, I would publish
I
it.
know, right?
I would publish it.
I still owe you the book that I owe you, so I want to get that done.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a few, Makani. We've got a few, and I'm patient. I'm patient. I'm just like, that's all I want to do now.
I love you for that.
Is make Black people make more books. So we're gonna shift into this top culture space, and like we said, it's really like, what is top culture for you? Like, what are you turning towards? What's getting you through this moment right now? And Autumn, why don't you model for us, since you have something that's like current and you just did.
Top. Look, here's the reality. I hadn't been in a movie theater in so long that there's no way for me to know if the movie was good or not. I just know that the experience of being in a movie theater to see a movie was top culture. Mm-hmm. Over the weekend, I went to see A Quiet Place Part 2, which I had patiently waited for, right? Because they kept being like, no, we're not going to do the HBO thing. We're not going to do the Disney Plus thing. We're literally just going to wait until theaters open up again.
Because it would not be scary enough.
And so I waited and waited, and then because it wouldn't be scary enough for a small screen, and they were right. It is a movie that is 100% made to be seen on a big screen, and it is fucking terrifying. It is any parent's worst nightmare, that movie. Both the first part and the second part is just a parent's absolute worst nightmare, newborn baby, monsters that hunt by sound only. Worst nightmare. And it was so delightful to just, I was that person who walked into the theater and was like, I combined my popcorn and I was like, I'm so excited to be here. I haven't been in a movie theater in so long. And the cash register person is like, I'm not saying anything in response to what you just said. She just didn't respond. But I was so excited. I was so excited to sit in the movie theater. I was like smiling at all the people around me. And one of the things I will say is I think based on that one experience, I only have one data point, but I think this might be true, that I think people's movie etiquette is going to be better post-pandemic. I noticed that people were not talking and laughing through the movie. Now, it was extremely terrifying, so that might be why there was no noise in the theater, but people were very quiet. And then they sat after it was over. No one wanted to leave the theater. I mean, y'all remember going to movies before the pandemic? Like, as soon as the credits roll, people are like climbing over each other to get out of the theater. That didn't happen. People just sat there and experienced the credits rolling. So I thought my top culture was going to be the movie, but now I'm thinking my top culture is just the experience of being in a movie theater and being terrified and scream jumping. And it was so good. It was so good. And I'm planning to hopefully take in the Fast and Furious, the new Fast and Furious movie. I'm still catching up. in the whole saga, but I'm hoping to catch up enough so that on Sunday night I can go see the F9.
There's not 9. All right,
this is the 9th one, and my crush Charlize Theron is in it. So I'm trying to be where she is.
There you go.
That's exciting.
That's my
Thank
top
you so
culture.
much for modeling that.
Thank you.
Rob and Makani, do y'all have something that's clear for you? Like,
Oh, okay. There's a part of me, Autumn, that wonders how many Black people were in that movie, like theater, like if there was no talking, like I wonder. I'm just like, because actually I'm not a horror movie fan, but really the only thing I really love about going to see horror movies is when Black people have talk back to it. There, it's kind of like my thing.
Yep.
I just, I remember like seeing Carrie in high school, and there's a part where the knives go foof, foof, and someone said pop locking, and they just went and pop locked through that. So it's like things like that. So I think, food has been, even though I'm trying to change my relationship with it, has been like a really important thing for me during the pandemic, especially. I spent most of it, like the vast majority of it, alone, right? And so for me, it's been really cool, like connecting with these political food communities. And so part of that has been learning through these collectives and shared recipes and things like that, Palestinian cooking, learning about the culture. And so my kitchen, like I have like a whole part of my kitchen that's like all of the new spices and syrups and flavors and things. And the new books that are coming out that are benefiting some the collectives that are there, like the Olive collectives and so many things. And I just have to say, I love the stories. I love the connection. And I feel like, man, another reason to hate white supremacy, colonialism, and patriarchy is like they fuck up your whole food thing, right? Like there's all kinds of people you would be hanging out with, right? Eating and cooking together and loving on each other instead of, the kind of war and craziness. And so to be in that space, to be in space with people, to hear their stories, and also to be in this thing that I love, but food and politics together. This makes me super happy.
Delicious.
So should I go?
Yeah.
Okay. I was terrified by this question because I don't have time to watch or see anything. We do have movie night with our 10-year-old daughter, Sekou. And so I've been watching pretty consistently things that 10-year-old kids like. And in the case of Sekou, it's either Godzilla or it's an Eddie Murphy movie.
I love Godzilla.
With kids. I mean,
Godzilla's awesome.
Godzilla is awesome.
So we watch a lot. I think every single Godzilla movie. But in terms of my top culture, and I'm trying not to name drop here, but I did, was able to develop a kind of working relationship with this wonderful singer, Cecile McLaurin-Salvant, who was on my show, my podcast.
I'm only one step ahead of heartbreak, one step ahead of misery.
She's also an amazing artist who is making an animated feature, Black feminist animated feature. I won't say much more than that, but it's like being able to talk to her and learn from her and like listen to her music and see her artwork. And, we all together, we actually contributed to the liner notes for a new Earl Garner box set that's coming out, I think it's September, to look out for. And so it's her, Terry Lynn Carrington, and myself. Ooh. So it's like, what can I say?
Okay.
It's like, my life is good.
Yeah.
My life is my top culture.
That's my top culture.
What can you say? What?
That's excellent.
That's pretty awesome.
My life is my top culture maybe that's a t-shirt. We'll credit you. So I would say my additions are, one is there's this band that we kind of have like a crush, like between our show and their band, called Tune Yards. And they just came out with a new album called Sketchy that is awesome. and was in part inspired by this show, like was inspired by the Apocalypse miniseries that Autumn did last year. But there's this particular song on there called Hypnotized. It's just like, look into my eyes. I literally am walking around, in this post-pandemic, like walking around outside, just like, look into my eyes, like. So top culture to me is when something gets in my head and I can't quite shake it out. Like the music feels like the soundtrack of right now. My second top culture is I'm watching Real Housewives of Atlanta, and I wasn't planning to, but I got pulled in. And this might be good research for you, Makani, because one of the characters is part of BLM. One of the people is like, I'm rolling with Black Lives Matter right now. It's amazing, fascinating to see like what someone who, how
it's part of the Black bourgeoisie.
Yeah,
and also
Black bourgeoisie. Showing up, and like it's the thing, right? I'm like, oh, this is the celebrity activism that people have been talking about, and what does that look and feel like? So I was like, I'm curious about it, but I was also more curious about the fact that she ends up with someone's husband who she's friends with on the show, and I was like, how does that happen? So I'm watching. It's fascinating. It's petty. It makes me relax a little bit because I'm just like, everyone's a mess, and I'm like, but not that kind of mess. We're doing okay. Like we're actually communicating pretty good. Like we use mediation and like we're doing all right. So that I like to stay in touch with like what is Black culture up to on like what is the trending culture of Blackness as we're trying to shape the future of Blackness. And then the other thing, which I don't think I spoke about this yet, Autumn, but I got to visit my sister. So we got to be together last weekend, or I guess the weekend before. And I got to watch
like 2 weeks ago,
a movie called Raya and the Last Dragon. Was that what it was? Raya and the Last Dragon?
Yes, that's one of the things we saw.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah. It was so gorgeous and emergent strategy infused. Like it felt like one of those things where it's just like, oh, like partnering with nature, finding your place inside of the natural flow of the world and listening to that which is larger than yourself. I just felt like it was a really beautiful thing. Like I was like, this is one of those things where I'm like, I'm watching this with children, but I'm going to come back and watch it by myself, maybe in an altered state so that I can just experience more of the layers of what got produced in it. It's really quite lovely. So we did it. We made it through the terror of top culture. And
wow.
And we made it through this really incredible show with y'all. We are so grateful for your precious time and that you shared this first hour and a half of togetherness after a year and a half of apartness together with us. We're really grateful.
So honored.
Yeah, well, I'm honored too. And what better way to spend it than with both of you? It's my big sister.
So sweet.
We love y'all so much.
So much love. I'm very full right now. I don't even know if I have all the words.
Yeah, it's good.
That's okay.
Sweet.
Thanks for listening to our show. We're on Twitter and Instagram at End of the World PC. We're also on Facebook at End of the World Show.
You can make a sustaining donation to our show by visiting our page at patreon.com/endoftheworldshow.
Another incredible thing you can do to help our show sustain itself is to write us a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're an iPhone person, thank you.
I think you can put a review anywhere you want to. Graffiti a review on the wall, like just tell people about us.
In the email account.
Yes. How to survive
the Instagram page.
Like somewhere, wherever you do things, tell them. How to Survive the End of the World is produced and edited by the sweet and kind Zach Rosen.
Music for today's show comes from Tunde Alaniran and Mother Cyborg.